If you want, you can call me Professor John Maloney. I have a YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel is actually new. I just created it yesterday, May the 1st of 2012. But I'm going to be doing lots and lots of video sharing, and these video sharings will be great for those of you that want to know how to program. There will also be for people wanting to learn how to use Excel, or perhaps learn how to use it better. For teachers, in the case of Excel, to show you how, as an example, to do things like change number grades to letter grades automatically. I'll also do things in other applications. So use this site. Okay, and I've typed it into Word here, youtube.com/Professor John Maloney. When you go there, bookmark me. Place me in your favorites, depending on which browser you're using. And right now I'm doing VB.NET 2010, but I'll have some files up there in Excel. I'll have some files up there in Microsoft Access. I'll have some files up there in Microsoft C#, and probably Microsoft C++, just to do certain things that I think are great to know. All right, and they'll all be under my channel. All right. What am I doing? Well, I'm trying to make these videos short. It's already 1 minute and 13 seconds long. I don't want this to go on forever. So I'm going to create a simple VB.NET job. And this one's going to have one button, and that's it, one little button. The reason I'm only having one button is so that I can limit the recordings to something less than 10 minutes. I don't want it to go on, as I mentioned, too long, because attention spans are short. Another good reason for doing them short like this is because if you only want to learn one thing, rather than having to find the code you're looking for, if let's say I did an hour-long presentation, you just want exit code. So today's is going to be an exit button code. It's not going to be me.close, by the way, for those of you that know how to code. It's going to use a dialog result. It's going to use an if condition to only exit if the user agrees. All right. So then I'll do another one showing you how to clear. But that'll be a separate application, but not again just clear like textbox1.clear, textbox2.clear, or textbox3.text equals double quotes, which also acts as a clear, or textbox4.text equals string.empty, which also acts as a way to clear. But I'll just have one using a loop, so that if you have, let's say as an example, 8 text boxes, you clear all 8 of them at the same time with one control, with one instance of code, as opposed to having to mention all 6, 8, 10, whatever number of text boxes that you might have. Okay, so today's, though, is just going to be an exit application. So I'm going to start up Visual Studio, and I want to create a new project. Okay, I'm going to call this simply Exit Application using Dialog Result. I'm going to put these in a folder location where I have some YouTube videos, so that's where I want it to go, and I'm going to say OK. It'll create the application. I'm going to make the form huge. I'm not going to leave it this way, but so that you guys can see it better. I'm not sure how great my Logitech webcam works, but hopefully it'll work wonderfully. Okay. I'm going to just double click on a button from the toolbox, and then the button is on the form. I'm going to bring it right down to the center of this big, huge form and make it nice and big so that we can see what it is. And I'm going to make the font large, okay, so you can see what I type. I'll make it maybe a 22, okay, nice and large. And I want the text to say exit, but I want the X to be underscored so that people that like shortcuts can do it that way too. So E, I type in a capital letter E, then an ampersand, XIT. And when you type E and an ampersand, you have to hold the Shift key and click on the number 7, and then the ampersand turns the X into an underscore, and the underscore X only works if you invoke it by clicking the Alt key when you run the application, and then the X key, X letter at the same time. So if you click Alt X when this is running, that's the same thing as clicking the button. Okay? All right. I also want to name my control. You should never leave these default names. Button 1. I'm going to call it Exit Button. And you never use spaces in any names in any programming language. So it's Exit Button as one word, but I use what's called camel case naming conventions. And with camel case, what you do is you type the first word, all lowercase, and then each additional word, if you have 2, 3, 4 words, etc., you capitalize the first letter. So in my case, Exit Button, exit small, is all small letters. The B in button is capitalized, and the UTTON are small. All right? Okay, so I do that, and now I double click it. This brings me to the code, right? It created this click event. It's called ExitButton_click event. The open parenthesis works in conjunction with the closing parenthesis, and what's in between is called an argument list. Okay? The by val stands for by value. It just means you're sending a copy of the command. Basically, this thing here is an object, so the sender in this case is the button. All right? The by after the comma, you get to argument number 2, and that says that E represents system.event_args. Just means whatever arguments I type in here, what code I type in here is what's going to be handled. And it's going to handle the click event, okay, which is a method associated with this control exit button. So I'm going to start with a comment. You do a comment by typing an apostrophe, and I'm going to say this button will only let the user exit if he, she agrees by clicking yes to the message. Okay, so there's going to be a message. All right, so I'm going to say if message box, what you're seeing is called IntelliSense. If message box.show, okay, then I have to put a string in quotes. So do you want to exit? Question mark, double quotes. Every string has to start with double quotes, end with double quotes. Then that's the end of argument 1, and it's text as string. I put a comma. That brings me to argument 2. Argument 2 is just a title for the message box. You don't have to have one, but they usually look a little nicer with a title. So I'll say exit or not, question mark, and the exit, before exit I typed double quotes again, and after the question mark double quotes. So exit or not within double quotes, and another comma. That brings me to argument 3. This is the one for any message box buttons I want to use. Well, I need to use a yes and a no button. The yes button will only kick in if the user actually wants to exit. The no will be the alternative. So I just double click here on message box buttons.yes/no. Then I want argument 4, which is which icon do I want to use. And again, you don't have to use an icon, but since I'm asking a user the question, then I want to use a message box icon.question. So I double click this one. I close the argument that I started over here by closing the parenthesis here. Okay? And then after that closing parenthesis, I say equals. So if the message box comes back with the user saying yes, they want to do it, then I click if it comes back to this one, which is yes. Okay? Then I enter, and I say me.close. Okay? And that's it. Now I'm going to put this in Word, just in case that doesn't show up that well, and I'm going to copy all of this. Okay? So Control-C that, and in my Word document that I have over here, I'll just go ahead and Control-V that. Okay? So I'm going to run through the code one more time. Here again you can see it larger, but realize that that code is in word wrap. So it's not really, I haven't hard returned any of this, okay? And make sure you understand that. So here it is. It's private sub exit button underscore click. Remember, there's an argument list. Automatically generated though. You just double click on the button. You don't need to type any of this. Okay? It creates it for you. It also creates the end sub. Everything in between is this. Okay? So from the comment, which was started by putting a apostrophe, and then I put the comment. This button will only let the user exit if he, she agrees by clicking yes to the message. So this is not code. It's just a comment to the programmer in case you forget what you're doing later on. All right, this is a pretty self-explanatory and pretty basic program, but either way. Then I'm starting an if condition. Any condition you start with some kind of a clause. And I want to do an if, so therefore, in other words, it's a condition. It's going to either be true or false. So I want to put up a message box to the user. In VB.net, actually in Visual Studio.net, every language has a message box. So if message box and I type a period, I get IntelliSense, and show is one of the choices. If you don't see it, you type SH and then show will be there, and you just hit your enter or hit your space bar or just hit the next key you want to use. In my case, I did .sh and then I typed my open parenthesis, but automatically the show popped up first. Okay? After the open parenthesis is the argument list again, and here's the argument list within the message. Okay? First one is, do you want to exit? You have to put double quotes around the string. All right? After you close the double quotes with this one here, then to go to argument number 2, you need to put a comma. After the comma, you're in argument 2. Then it's another string. This one here is called the caption. It's the title of the message box. I put within my string exit or not question mark. Double quotes before it, double quotes after it. Then another comma. The comma again ended that argument, brought me to a third argument. This one is optional. Actually, the title is also optional. I wanted message box buttons. And remember, I did not enter. This is a Word document, and it's wrapping because all these things, there's no spaces in message box buttons dot yes, no, and it couldn't fit up here with my large font. Okay, so comma, it rolled here, message box buttons dot yes, no, though I just clicked on it. I did not type that. Then I did the next apostrophe, the next comma, because I also wanted to use an icon. I also didn't type this. I just double-clicked on it from the selection. I wanted the question mark icon to appear. I did type in the closing parenthesis, which closed the argument list that was started here. And then I put the equal sign, and then I have to say, because see, if, in other words, they do want to exit, then I want to say windows.forms.dialogresult.yes. But again, I didn't type this. This was a choice from the IntelliSense associated with Visual Studio. Okay, it's all built into the IDE, the Integrated Development Environment. So I double-clicked on windows.forms.dialogresult.yes. Then I entered. After I entered, Visual Basic threw in the then. Okay, and it also threw in the end if for me. All I typed was me.close. All right. Now let me run it, and you'll see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to run the application. Oh, let me first resize it now. So that's obviously way too big. I'm going to leave it huge, but I would never do this in the real world. Okay, I'll leave it about like that. Oh, I want to put a form. I like to have form names. Something about John Maloney. John Maloney, exit with dialog result. Okay, all right, I'm going to run it. I want to also have the startup position to be in the center of the screen. So I just go to the start position from the properties and say center screen and run. Now it's going to come up, okay, and here's what I have. I can minimize this now. This is the application, okay, right here. So I say exit, I click it, it's going to give me my message box. This is what I created, that message box. The caption, or sorry, the text to the user is, do you want to exit? Okay. The caption, which I explained meant title, was exit or not. Then I double-clicked, remember, on message box buttons dot yes, no. That put the yes and no buttons on here. And then I put another comma, and I double-clicked on message box icons dot question, which put the question mark here. If I click no, it doesn't exit. If I click it again and say yes, it'll shut it down. Okay? And it is now shut down. Open it back up, and I'm just at my code view. Okay, so it's not running anymore. I hope that explained the message box. Let me go ahead and stop this recording. It's longer than I wanted.